Okay. Welcome to the City of Groton Committee of the Whole tonight for Monday, March 28, 2022. Roll call. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Present, we have Mayor Keith Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Guinevere Depot, Councilor Lisa McCabe, Councilor Paul Norris, Councilor Christine Piazza, and Councilor Stephen Sheffield. Director of Finance, Ron Uhas, and excused is Rashad Carter.
Okay. So we have a lot on tonight's agenda, so we're going to step through it. The first one is number one, appointments. So the first appointment that we have is Jeff Godley as a reappointment to the Groton Utilities Commission. Any questions or comments on Jeff? Nope. Okay. The second appointment is Joan Feeney for the Youth Advisory Committee. This is a new appointment. Remember, we just reestablished the Youth Advisory Committee. So she is not here. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Seeing as she's not here, I did look over her resume, and I think she does fill a different spot than all the other people, which is, I know Mary Hill's working hard to have diversity on this team, and she is a retired teacher, and I think that that is another gap, another good spot, another perspective that will be useful for that committee. So I'm grateful that we've been able to find all these people to fill these roles, because we need all those perspectives to make it work well.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Okay. Lisa Lambert. She is also for the Youth Advisory Committee. She's a new appointment. Any questions or comments on her? And lastly, Jennifer Smith will be a new appointment for Beach and Parks Committee. Any questions on her? All right, then I'll take a motion to, let me see, where are we here? I'll take a motion to move these to the mayor and council meeting of 4 April 2022.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. All right, the second thing we're gonna bring up is 748 donation requests. So the first one is Fleet Reserve Association flags for Memorial Day. So George, you can come up and present.
Excuse me? Okay. So I better watch what I say, huh?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor DePoe, members of the City Council. My name is George Highland. I am the treasurer for Branch 20 of the Fleet Reserve Association, 242 Thames Street. Among my duties is to chair the Patriotics Committee, and we are responsible for placing graves on the flags on the graves of veterans in two cemeteries in Groton. One is Star Hill up by the old Navy housing, and the second one and the biggest is Colonel Ledyard. Last year, we placed 964 flags. We ordered 864, and the difference was made up by those flags that we have held on to over the years. Kept them in pristine condition, and the cost of flags has gone up this year. I am here on behalf of the Fleet Reserve Association to request from the city a donation of $400. The total cost of the flags this year is $833.95. Excuse me. The other half we are going to request from the town, $433, simply because they have it in their budget for us every year. Any questions from the council?
Councilor Piazza.
Thank you for presenting this. I have two questions.
I'm sorry,
for you.
could you speak up? I'm wearing hearing aids.
Sure. Thank you for coming. And I have two questions. One is, who actually places them on the grave sites?
I'm sorry.
Who actually places the flags on the
We
grave
do.
sites?
The Fleet Reserve Association
Fleet
members
Reserves.
plus we ask for volunteers. We typically have people who hear about us. We have the Sea Cadets, whom we sponsor. We've had the Elks from the Groton Lodge, 2163 there last year. And typically we have maybe 35 or 40 volunteers total. And it takes us about 4 hours in Colonel Ledyard. And we have 4 people to go up to Star Hill, because that being a private area, they request not too many people traipsing through the burial grounds. So we do it with 4 people, and unfortunately, I'm the youngest of the group, and I'm 79 years old. I know I don't look it, but, you know.
You know. My other question is, if somebody wanted to do a place donation toward this, how would they actually go about that?
You can call me through Mary Hill. You
Okay.
can send a check to the Fleet Reserve Association, Branch 20, 242 Thames Street in Groton.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Depot?
I just want to point out that I have relatives buried in Colonel Ledyard Cemetery that are veterans and that have flags placed there every year. And I had no idea who did that. I thought they magically appeared, apparently. Like when I was a kid, I would go visit. So I think that it's important that we recognize people like George and the Fleet Reserve Association who are honoring our community members. These are people who, I know my grandparents are in there and they lived
Yes.
in Groton most of their lives, so I really appreciate it. And I think, on top of the fact that I think it's good to donate, I think it's good to just recognize the good that you guys are doing in the community, so thank you very much.
Still can't hear you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All finished?
No. So, any other counselors have questions or comments? Counselor Carter, you have the floor.
I'll speak loud. It's more of a statement. I commend you for coming here and not only asking for a request in person, right, which oftentimes a lot of organizations don't, but it also allows us to answer questions, and commend you for doing so. So I appreciate you even coming here in the first place.
Thank you. One of the things I've tried to do in the last few years, Branch 20 has been in the city since 1954, and nobody in our organization has reached out to the city to kind of mesh together and do things so where we can get some recognition for veteran service from you folks, for you folks, and for us. And I work very hard at that. In fact, I've invited the mayor and deputy mayor to our Sailor of the Quarter programs, and that has worked out tremendously. The Coast Guard has received that as a kudo for them and a boost up that people in politics are recognizing them, because you never hear of them over here until somebody jumps in the river. They're just out there. Oh, you're in the Coast Guard? Where are you stationed? A lot of people don't know we have a Coast Guard station here.
Ron, the council has an account. Where are we on that?
So currently, we've funded 2 donations, 1,000 each, in this fiscal year to Children's First and the Martin Luther King Scholarship. So there's 3,000 currently remaining.
Okay, so I want to make sure that council is aware of the funds that we have remaining, so that you know that we do have funds available should you decide to fund this amount.
May I pass this to your finance director?
Yes, sir.
This is the flags we ordered, so you'll see how much the actual cost was.
Any other questions or comments for George? Okay, then I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 4 April in the amount of $400.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank
Mayor
you, George.
Hedrick, thank you. One last thing.
Yes, sir.
I invite you to come and join us in placing of the flags. We start 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. promptly. I bring the donuts, you bring your own coffee. At 8 a.m., we explain to everybody how we place the flags and what you're looking for on a headstone or a foot marker for the veteran. Love to have all of you come out. I'm expecting probably about 35 people so far. And if we could see you and you can just put a couple of flags down to help us, we'd be very happy. And one of the things that's really beautiful is when we're finished, to stand up by the chapel and look at the great expanse across the front of the graveyard. All those flags just make you proud. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, my
Council.
friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, George. Okay. The next donation request is Thames River Heritage Park. That's they have a request for $10,000. Last year, we provided $10,000. Typically, the city of Groton, town of Groton, and New London provide $10,000 as a donation to the Thames River Heritage Park, and they're asking for that this year. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Excuse me. So I guess my question is, do we know, is it the intent of Thames River Heritage Park Foundation to increase their funding from operations? Or do they plan to continue to need the same amount of money in donations from the three municipalities every year? Are they expecting to have this consistently 10,000 a year that they need from the city?
Or, I'm on the board, and right now, they're trying to determine how to expand ridership and get ridership up, as well as through possible increases in fees. The other thing that they're doing is they have a third water taxi, and here, let's see, we're in April, or March. In April, they should start the dock down at the Nautilus Museum. And so they're gonna add another dock down there with a separate taxi for that, and they're hoping that that's gonna get them additional revenue as well. They do recognize that they are dependent on donations from the state and from us, and they're trying to come up with ways that they can get more programming so that they can get ridership up to offset those costs.
So I'm not asking because I think this is a worthy thing for us to contribute money to. It brings people to the city. I think in the future also it goes with what we're trying to do with economic development and all of that. Considering the amount of the expenditure, is it possible maybe next year when we get the request to get a copy of their financials? Or at least to have an idea of what part of their financials this is. It doesn't have to be, I don't want their like financial statement, but to say like the amount of funding they have, the same thing you'd get from like a charity that reports like how much of their earnings goes to operations, how much goes to administration, or,
Yep.
that kind of thing. Does that make sense? I just feel like because it's not like we're donating $400, $10,000 is a whole different level of donation.
Absolutely.
And while I think it is worth donating to, and I think it's important, I would like the reassurance of seeing, at least on a high level, where they're spending their money.
Well, go ahead, Ron.
They have come in the past and presented that, so I'm sure they'd be willing to do.
a couple years.
Yeah,
It has, and the COVID put us behind. If council wants, I can table this until the next committee of the whole and have them come in with their financials and then give you a presentation. Or you could vote tonight, but if you're inclined not to pass it, I would rather you wait till next month where I can bring them in so they can brief you. But if you're comfortable, then you can vote on it, but it's up to what council wants. Deputy Mayor Depot.
I'm happy to vote on it. Like I said, I think it's a worthy cause. I just would, from a fiduciary standpoint, would feel better if we had that breakdown.
Well, I can always get them to come in next month anyway and give us a brief on where their donation went. I mean, just to bring you guys up to speed or get you a copy of that.
I mean, I would like that.
Okay? Are you okay with moving forward, just as a consensus?
I'm fine
Councilor Piazza?
to move forward.
To move forward and vote tonight, or if you're not inclined, then I'll table it and we will bring them in next month.
So I'm trying to understand, so that, I mean, I understand what's up on the table here. I'm just, so was the question answered whether this was an annual donation, giving, or this was just
Well,
one time?
They have asked us for several years for the $10,000 donation, as well as the town and the city of New London. They recognize that their dependence on donations, and they're trying to get additional sources of revenue as well as expand operations so that they can get ridership up so that they are less dependent on donations.
I'm fine with moving forward.
Okay, Council Carter? Okay? Any further questions on this? Okay, in that case, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting for April.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Number 3 is 783 Groton City Brew Run. So we have a couple people tonight to come present. I've asked Bruce Flax with the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce to come in, and Dan Bogues. I don't think we got a handout on that, okay? So gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Well, sure. So we understand, is this on? Yeah. We understand there were some questions last time you met about the Brew Run, the purpose, what it brings to the city, the benefits and so on. So I thought we'd give you the rundown of how the Brew Run began. It actually began with Groton Utilities. Groton Utilities approached the chamber a couple years ago during COVID. Didn't work out because of COVID, and then when Bruce came along and became the president of the chamber, we started up discussions again. They weren't going to have the fall festival anymore, and so we thought it was a good opportunity to have an event that was city-centric, something that was a showcase for the city. And we had this unique idea, or semi-unique idea, and we thought we could bring it over to Eastern Point Beach, show off one of the best parts of the city of Groton. And so we did with the chamber, and we had the event, and we feel like it was very successful. And we probably brought in, what was it, 300 people who may or may not have ever been in the city before. And we thought that was a tremendous benefit to the city. What we do with that going forward is up to us. And we've been talking with each other and with Sierra from the city side about how we can expand what it means to the city to have all these people in who haven't really been there before necessarily. So that's my thoughts on the Brew Run. Bruce, did you want to add something?
Mayor and Deputy Mayor and councilors, thanks for having us tonight. We were super excited last year to put the event on. And it was great for us from the chamber standpoint to be in the city and to showcase the beach. And I'll be honest with you, I've lived here 26 years and I never saw it that up close, short for a couple of meetings at the house there. And I felt a great deal of pride being there and understand the pride that the city feels for that area too. I think that from our standpoint, we want it to grow. We want to continue to showcase what the city has to offer. And we're willing, we have ideas about how we can do that, but also want to get input from Sierra and from the councilors as well. Last year, we had realized that 2 weeks after our race was the Riverfront Children's Center race. And so they ended up, for whatever reason, whether it was our event or not, they got a little bit compromised in the number of people who were attending their race. And I've been talking with the director about having them come on board and have this benefit them as well. And so I've been talking with Michelle, and we have some things to iron out, but we believe they'll be coming on as a partner, and it will be benefiting them as well. And we've talked about what they made off of the race that they were used to, and how we could at least supplement that, or if not exceed it. So that's one way we're giving back to the city. And then as far as other ways, I think that there are ways to do that in terms of having vendors on site, and having bags made that we can give to the runners to show whatever we want them to see from the city side. And then I think Councilor Carter had asked possibly about giving residents of the city, as a benefit for hosting the race, some form of discount if they wanted to run the race and/or take part in the brew run. And we have no problem with that. That would be fine with us. So we just had to figure out what that discount could be, and let the residents know that we appreciate being here and doing so in their backyard, give them some kind of benefit. So, thank you.
There was also a question about the police. You guys paid for police coverage
We did.
last time,
Yep,
if I remember correctly.
that's correct. And we'd be willing to do, let me make sure, absolutely willing to do so again. Whatever expenses that come across, we have a responsibility to pay. So we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, any other questions from Deputy Mayor Depot?
I just want to thank you guys for presenting. I know after the last meeting, after we kind of had that discussion, I realized, I think a lot of it was that the previous meeting, there's just been a lot happening, and some of these details that you've said today, that we did hear before, but it was so long ago that I kind of forgot about them. So I think because it's such a new event, we've only done it one time, it's helpful to have a refresher of, the background, why we're doing it, the benefits. And there was the question of the cost to the police department, which, it's important to be able, for me at least, to be able to explain to a taxpayer, oh, they paid for that. You didn't pay for that in your taxes, because that's what people automatically assume, that their tax dollars are going to stuff that they're not necessarily benefiting from, because that happens all the time. So it is something people are very sensitive to. So I appreciate you coming to iron it out and make sure that we know for sure what is happening with, all of the money and our resources that we're using for it. I do think it's a really good benefit. I know that we've discussed with the Economic Development Department tying in as much as we can with the local businesses, making sure they're aware of the opportunity of the tie-in, because I think that a lot of times the communication is the issue. Businesses don't know all the time when these events are going on, so they don't know to be able to buy in. So I know personally, when I go to a business in the city, I will often ask them about things like this that they could be a part of, and say, hey, if you have any questions, contact our Economic Development Department, contact the mayor's office, so that they can benefit as well. And I think I'm excited to see where it goes. We've only had 1 year, and I think that we're all on board with the benefit to the city. Like I said, I genuinely after was like, you know what, we did talk about that before. I just didn't remember all the details from the previous meeting, so thank you again.
I think another thing, we missed an opportunity last year after the event, after the chamber got together and did a hot wash or whatever, to come back and brief the council so that the council could get the benefit of what you guys learned from how did it go, lessons learned, those kind of things. And I'll ask you now that once we're done, to come back and brief the council so that they understand the benefits of it and how it went, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. I can't express enough how beautiful the area is and how great it really went. Like, for the first time event, the partnership between Groton Utilities and the Chamber went really well, and we worked together really well. And there was a lot of pride, like a lot of pride for the event, and the fact that it went off so well. And we thanked Mother Nature a great deal because we had great weather. So that certainly was a part of it. But everybody who came to that event, and I think probably, I would guess that 80% of the people probably were not city residents. Just had a great time, and we're very complimentary of the area and the event and the environment there. So we're happy to come back afterwards and talk about what went well and what we need to improve upon.
Okay. Councilor Norris.
Thank you very much. Are you at liberty to say how much Groton Utilities is sponsoring the event too? And if it's all cash, is it in kind? How does?
We have an agreement to donate $5,000 to the chamber, which previously had been as what's the term, primary sponsor of the Fall Festival. When the Fall Festival went away, you know, we moved it over to this. Because last year was our first time, there were a couple additional expenses. We paid for the band, but I actually took that out of money that had been designated in my budget for the cabaret concerts, which had been canceled because of COVID. And I think T-shirts for us to wear so people knew, you know, who staff was. So it was $5,000 plus the band plus a little bit for the T-shirts, but otherwise, that was the total of the expenses for GU.
Right. Are you at liberty to? So you paid for PD overtime? Is that?
Whatever the bill was, it was like around $2,300
Okay,
for the
thank
day.
you. And then the last thing is more like a request, is it possible to somehow put information in the race packets about important landmarks or things to do in the city? So, because we all know, well, we hope that when the event's over, that they either stay here for another couple of hours or they come back within 30 days. So it's more of a request.
That's one of the things we've talked about actually pretty recently. And one of the things we brought Sierra in because we have them here. So let's tell them how great the city is. You know, let's get, you know, coupons for Paul's Pasta. Let's get maps of where to go in the city. And yeah, we need to do a better job of taking advantage of all these people being here. So absolutely.
We, the chamber recently is developing an app for us, and it's going to have so when you get the app, it's called Go Mystic. It's going to have eat, shop, play, stay, work, and live. And so we can take anything, you know, through Groton Utilities in the city, we can take anything, historical landmarks, things that you want people to visit, and put them under play. And so we're happy to do that as well. And we push that app during the event.
Thank you.
Sierra? Yeah, come on up.
Just wanted to add to speak to Paul's point about the tourists coming in and going to other events. Organically, the Avery Cop Museum was already hosting, I think, like an open house. They had Norm Blooms and Son there to kind of do some oyster shucking, and a number of people from the Brew Run actually attended that event, and I was there. So to hear them talk about being down at the beach and then coming over to Thames Street and being at another event, and it was kind of like nice because it was brew and sausage at the beer run, but then at Avery Cop it was like the oysters, the wine, so it was like a whole different feel and perspective from the city. So I just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the statements you had made was one of the best parts of Groton City. So is it planned that this will always originate at Eastern Point Beach, or have you thought about moving it around in Groton City at different points?
The plan right now is Eastern Point because, I mean, it's Eastern Point Beach. It's beautiful. It's right on the water. You can see Avery Point from there. Would we consider in the future moving it? I suppose. It's not something we've thought about to this point because we've only done it once. And we want to get really good at doing it at the beach. But sure, you never know.
Also, there's a wide expanse, right? So you can spread out at the beach, if you will, for lack of a better term.
We analyzed doing it in Washington Park originally.
Sure.
A couple years back, but there wasn't an existing race route where there already was done down by Eastern Point Beach because they actually do 5Ks there. We didn't invent that. They've been doing that there. So there was an ease of that. You know, the police already had the map. But yeah, we could always check it out in the future.
Counselor Carter.
Can I just say a remark to that?
Hold on, Counselor Carter. Counselor Piazza?
Thank you for mentioning Washington Park. So I live up near that area, but talking about, speaking about different things in Groton City. So I thought, even with the fireworks, everybody comes along over to Fort Griswold, so it's a great landmark there. So I was just wondering, that's why I was asking if you were going to move from different places and so forth.
Part of the thought was we already have the concerts in the park, in Washington Park, so this was, something that was a little different.
Counselor Carter?
Parking too, yeah. So I as a member of the council didn't want to feel like you guys were being put on a hot seat, and I actually felt that way before you guys took your seats, But I'm all for this. I'm a big time advocate of anything, when it comes, especially running and whatnot, I think it's something that we've needed for a while. I've advocated before, and I think it's something that we can continuously have ongoing, right? But my only big concern was the payment of police, right? And you've already answered that, that's like home run right there. And the just to show the city, our residents of the city that that we see them too, although that they may not participate, that it's there for you, as far as like that little discount, it's something, I think that's big. Even if they don't show up, it's something, because it's essentially it's their money, so I thank you guys for coming. I mean, for one, I think we would have passed it last time, but it was just some of these questions that you had already answered before we even commented on it. So appreciate it.
No problem. We have no problem coming in here talking about it. We felt it was a great event, and so in some ways it's almost bragging. So yeah, we're glad you guys support us, and we would be more than happy to come in and tell you how it went afterwards.
Actually, I was talking to one of the city employees, and we were actually talking about how it is great, and will this eventually even outgrow the beach? Because it's I mean, I love the beach and whatnot, and I love that area, but I think this could be big, especially with you guys involved. I think having the chamber involved is a good thing because that's what you do, right? And that kind of takes us out of it as far as our employees and Mary having to run a race or whatnot, and I'm glad that she's happy about that. So,
Yeah, the partnership with the chamber was really important to us because they do events like this. We just had the idea, but they have the organization and the experience.
Okay, anything else? Any other counselors? Counselor Sheffield?
Yes, thank you guys for coming. I volunteered last year, and I had a great time, and looking forward to it again this year. So, thank you.
Okay, so what got us here last time or this time or now is that we'll need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 4th to get council's permission for the alcohol.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you both for coming out.
Thank you very much.
All right, number 4, Public Works, we're doing 794, which is the salt shed.
Good evening. So I'm here tonight to ask for your support to fund the replacement of the roof on the highway salt shed. Salt shed was built in 1997. And the roof is original, so the roofing material right now is 25 years old. It's deteriorated. It's in need of repair. Salt shed is 40 foot by 80 foot, 85 foot long and about 50 foot high, so it's a big project. We did receive 5 proposals for the work. With the approval of the finance director, we'd like to go with the low bid. I did add in 10% contingency to support materials underneath the underlayment, so the contractors did provide, each of them provided a price should they need to replace a piece of plywood. Structurally, underneath, visually, it looks okay. I think we'll be all right, but we may need a couple of sheets of plywood.
Questions or comments on the salt shed? Councilor McCabe?
Where is the salt shed?
So it's in the backyard by the highway garage. If you look towards the rear of the building, it's off to the left. It's a big geodescent
Yeah,
shaped
okay.
shed, yeah.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Depot.
It looks like a decent spread between all of these quotes. Was there something that made this lower quote lower? Like, are they using different materials, or, it also looks like they're gonna be able to finish it fairly quickly.
Yeah, so the prices ranged, so, from 34,999 up to a high of 68,800, so it was a pretty good spread. And sometimes you put them out, and at this time, I think what we're finding is that people are having a hard time getting employees to work, and sometimes the pricing's a little bit higher in anticipation that they'll get this. I think this company's going to do really well. I did reach out to their people that they've used before, and I got all great referrals back from them. So I feel pretty confident with these guys. They're out of Massachusetts.
That was gonna be my next question. Have we used them before? But you said you got
I don't believe that we have used them, but again, I did reach out to all 5 of their referrals, and it came back very positive.
Okay.
They've been around for a while.
thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So what is the warranties on the roofing?
So the shingle is a 50-year shingle, and I did speak to the contractor, and as far as the construction and installation goes, it's a 2-year warranty for that. So it's pretty fair.
So my other question is that you say possibly plywood, so is there leaks happening that may affect, that's already affecting the structural, maybe going deeper than the plywood?
So right now, what I see is that the shingles, what happens when they start to fail, you see them cup and curl up, and I'm seeing a lot of that, and it's just reached the end of the life. So I think the original shingle was probably a 30-year shingle. 25 years, I think, is pretty decent. So the replacement will be a 50-year shingle. Okay.
One more question.
Okay.
It's just kind of out in the ball field here. So storing salt, what does that actually do to a roof or the insides, the interior, with the fumes actually are created from this and being stored?
Some off gas or something. So that's a great question. So it's a 500-ton storage for salt that we have in there. So it's, if you looked at the facility, right, it's much like shaped like a football field, but it's wide open on either side. So we're constantly getting air transferred back and forth, and I think we're doing really well. So the visual inspection up inside, everything looks structurally fine. Thank you. That's a good question.
Thank you, Bill.
Councilor Sheffield?
Yes, Bill, I guess this is going to be paid through municipal grants and funds. I'm not sure, maybe Ron might have a better answer of what type of grants are we using for this project?
It's a grant that we receive every year that we are allowed to do alternate projects with, and we have to submit it to the state for their approval, so the state's already approved this as an alternate project with that grant.
So this is state-funded?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 4 April.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you, Bill.
All right, 773, baseball fence removal and replacement. Mary?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to move forward with a removal and replacement of the outfield fence of Field 3, our large baseball field at Washington Park. It's rusty, it's old, it's been there probably about 28 years. It's only a partial replacement because, as you know, the hill that we sled on comes into that field, so that right field side of that fence is portable. So this is to replace the permanent side. We took out to bid. We had 6 bids come in, ranging from $16,465 to $38,700. Gateway was the low bid. Gateway has done work in the city before. The fence around the basketball court down at the beach was put in by this company a number of years ago. So they are a company that we've worked with in the past. And with them being the low bid and having worked here, we're recommending that we move forward with them replacing, so they remove all the old fence and take it out of here, and then they'll put the new fence up.
Questions on the baseball fence? Counselor Norris?
I'm sorry, do you have an idea of how many linear feet we're talking about?
445 linear feet and an 8-foot high, the height of his 8-foot high.
All right.
Sorry. 9 gauge galvanized steel, or wire throughout.
Any other questions? Counselor Carter, you have the floor.
So for years, I've passed, and I've noticed that it definitely needs to be replaced. I've said that to myself several times, but I'm glad you're bringing that forward now. So that's not the only one, but I'm glad.
Great.
All right.
We're slowly getting there. We've done field 4. We've done the backstop of this field. Now we're doing the outfield. It's all out of capital improvement, so.
Any additional comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to move this to mayor and council meeting of April 4th.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mary.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, the next thing we're gonna go is 6:55 department presentations. Joe, I'm gonna get you to come up. This is Joe Pratt. Joe Pratt is the chief plant operator for the pollution abatement facility. And this has been a presentation I've been wanting to give you guys for a long time. It's, people don't understand what it takes to process our waste and what happens to it and how they make it work. So it is actually pretty impressive when you see the presentation. So Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Does everybody have their pamphlet? Okay. Well, I'm Joe Pratt. Introduce me. I'm the chief plant operator at the wastewater treatment plant on Thames Street. And I'm going to do a quick presentation. Glasses are fogging up on me. So the first sheet I had, I made a diagram of the actual process flow. So what I'm going to do is we'll go through each page after that, and I'll just describe how it's going through it with the equipment. So as the flow comes in, we take samples. So the first slide here would be the samplers. We have 2 samplers. The first sampler samples the incoming flow, that's the raw sewage, and the second samples the effluent flow. The samples are composite samples that are tested for numerous things such as BODs, TSS, and nutrients. They are tested in our lab and also in an outside lab. We send them out. So, and this is to go through, we have to do this for our permit. So the next sheet is the actual lab testing. So this is how many tests we do a year. We do 9,150 tests. It has the type of samples, grab, composite, daily composite, the frequency, locations, and they're tested. Everything that's on here is what we need to test for our actually daily operations and for our permit that we have to send to the state. We send 2 reports in a month. We do a monthly monitoring report, and we do daily that we send in to the state. So this next picture is a picture of our lab. All right, there's 2 very important tests that we do in there. It's a biological oxygen demand test, or biochemical oxygen demand, and the second is total suspended solids. In our permit, we required 85% removal, and we average 98 to 100% removal that we're putting back out into the river. And if you look on the right, it's sort of hard to see with this picture, but this first cone, that's the influent where we're taking that sample from. That's the actual raw. And the one on the right, if you came down, you'd look a lot better. It looks like clear water that we're putting back out. And as we go on our flow now, we're going into the treatment plant. We start with an aerated grit chamber. And the aerated grit chamber is designed to slow down the flow so that wastewater such as sand, coffee grounds, eggshells will settle in the wastewater. Grit causes excess wear and tear on pumps, all sorts of equipment. It tears up everything. So we remove it. What it does is it settles, and we have a company, McBack, come in. Well, we take the tank down, we suck all that out, they remove it and get rid of it. You probably do that twice a year. So the next one, the flow continues after the aerated gear chamber. It will go to a step screen. We have a Hubert step screen. That's to remove large articles like wood, plastic, rags, paper towels, leaves, whatever's floating, it will remove. And then it will go through that unit in the back is a shredder. We grind it up, and the guys dump that every day in the dumpster, and it's removed. Okay. So after that, it flows to the primary settling tanks. We have 4 primary settling tanks. They're covered to stop any raw sewage odor from getting out. They're designed to remove suspended solids and floating organics such as scum. This will reduce the suspended solid loading for later treatment process. Once the wastewater flows through the primary tanks, the wastewater will flow over the weirs into a primary tank. So the next slide is the primary sludge pumps. So when it goes into the primary tanks, everything settles to the bottom. We have flights that will push it into a hopper, and these pumps will pump it over to our digesters. So that's what those pumps do. So the clear water will flow over the weirs, like I said, and it'll go over to the primary effluent pumps. We have 3 pumps. If you look on the right, they're very large pumps. That's a crane. To work on these, we have to get a crane to pull them out. You can't really see them because it's down deep into the wet well. Their job is to pump the primary effluent to the headworks of the aeration tank. Okay, so the next slide is the aeration tanks. We have 2 aeration tanks. So this picture on the left is an aeration tank that's full. The air is going through it. The one on the right, we took that down for maintenance. That's the diffusers on the bottom. It's a grid, and we have blowers that will blow the air through that into the thing. So we use an activated sludge process where we give the microorganisms the proper food and the proper oxygen to actually multiply, and they use the waste as their food. So that's how we're getting rid of it.
Where in this system does it start to remove metals? Move past that?
Well, any of the metals would settle. Anything that will settle in the first tank, the primary tank. That's pumped over to our digester, and that will be removed. That goes, and actually, that's a good question because we have to quarterly do samples on that sludge. We send it out, and they test all the metals to make sure what's going out of it. So the next slide is the turbine blowers. We have 3 Spencer turbine blowers. They're designed to produce the oxygen for the microorganisms. Okay, so now we have, these are the RAS pumps, return activated sludge pumps. So what happens is the bugs go through the aeration tank, they go over the flights, they go to the final tanks. Well, when they settle, we need bugs back in the beginning of that aeration tank. So these return activated sludge pumps, they take these microorganisms and pump them back to the head of the aeration tank so they could go through and do it again. And we also use these pumps as our waste pumps too. So we have calculations we do every day to figure out how much food we have, how many microorganisms we have. So anything that we have too much, so they don't starve and die, we waste them. So we send them to the, we'll see here, we send them to a machine and actually thicken them up and get rid of them. So the next, as the flow goes on, it goes to the final clarifiers, where that's where the RAS gets returned back to the aeration tank, and we waste. And then that flow will go over, and it'll go to a chlorine contact chamber where we chlorinate to disinfect, and from there it goes out to the river. So the next one is the rotary drum thickener. So this machine is what we're sending the waste to. We send the waste to this machine, we add a polymer, it rotates, the water drains out, and we thicken the sludge. So we aren't shipping in the tanker trucks just water, it's actually thick sludge that we're sending them. Yep.
Where does the sludge go? Where do you transport it to?
The tanker trucks take it to, wherever, they go to Matabassett right now, but where there's incinerators, they burn it.
But none of this ends up at the landfill?
No, no. I think, a long, long time ago, the dumps used to take it, but no longer, no. It goes to a tanker truck, and this is a big expense for us right now, is the tanker trucks hauling that sludge away.
I'll try to keep this brief, but one of the things that I looked at when I first got here was, could we use this and thicken it and then use it either on, like golf courses, because you can do that in Rhode Island. Connecticut won't let you use bio-waste like this. So one of the things that I had them look at is, you know, what's our arc of profitability? Because it costs us money to get rid of this. If we could sell that, that would have been great. The problem was, in order to thicken it to the percent that they needed to, we needed additional equipment, and we didn't have the footprint to buy that additional equipment, so we weren't able to go down that road. But we were looking at turning this waste into a profit and trying to make money off of it, so. So, please, Joe.
Okay, so this next one's, this is just a polymer pump, and we use that polymer to thicken the sludge. We pump it in, we meter it in on whatever we need to get it as thick as we need. This next slide is the sludge pump. So once we thicken it, these pumps will pump it over to the thickened storage tank. This next slide is the thickened sludge storage building. That's where the pump is located, and we also store the sludge in those tanks there. The sludge transfer pump, that pump is located in the bottom of that building. That pump will pump the sludge that's in the tank to a tanker truck. This hose, the tanker truck loading area, we hook that up to the tanker truck, and we pump in 6,500 gallons of sludge. We usually do 2 to 4 loads a week. Sludge. Yeah. So this next slide is the digester building. And the digester building is where the primary and the second digesters are located, along with the heat exchanger, the mixing pumps, recirc pumps, and excess waste gas burner. So the digesters are closed circuit, they're closed. The primary tanks have a fixed cover, and the secondary has a floating cover. So what we do is the primary tank is always full. When we pump over, if we pump 3,000 gallons over to the primary tank, 3,000 gallons will go over to the secondary tank, and in that primary tank, we're producing gas. And with that gas, it'll flow through the pipes, and there's a floating cover that rises till it gets to the top. And if that's why we have an excess waste gas burner. If we get too much gas, we can light that off. But we also have a heat exchanger that we burn that methane gas. And this next slide is that. We use the gas that we produce to run this, and this heats the sludge because it has to be at like around 98 degrees. It's almost like your stomach. It's digesting the sludge. So we use that, and if we don't have enough gas, we can run it on oil, and if we have too much gas, the next slide is the excess waste gas burner. So we would light that and burn off the excess gas. This is the mixing pump. So with that digester, so it just doesn't sit there, we mix it. So we mix it going up, it brings it from the bottom up to the top and just keeps it like suspended sort of, so the sludge doesn't get real thick in one area, we just keep it rolling. And then we also have recirc pumps. Those pumps will take the sludge and they mix it through the heat exchanger to keep it warm. And that's it. I tried to do a quick one if you guys got any questions.
Councilor McCabe?
This was very interesting.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. My question was the shredder.
Yes.
In the beginning.
Yep.
And you said you just bag it up and put it in the dumpster?
Yes.
How much
We usually get at least a 55-gallon, well, garbage bag full every day.
Every day.
Every day. Sometimes if you get good rain, it really flushes the actual collection system out, and we might get a lot more. So you might have to dump it a couple times a day. You monitor it. The guy does his round and makes sure.
Counselor Piazza? You had,
But Steve had his hand up first.
That's fine, doesn't matter.
well, I recognize you. Would you like to have the floor?
Sure, thank you.
Counselor Piazza, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Just a simple question, and then something else I wanted to say. For the tanker truck loading area, you said it's 6,500 gallons. How long does it actually take to load the truck?
It depends on how thick, but it usually is about a half hour.
Oh, okay, I was thinking a little bit longer, okay.
No, the pump's pretty good, and actually the
That is a good
digester,
pump.
we have to, when we take a load out of that, it's gravity, and it's pretty high. It comes in, you gotta watch it. You gotta make sure you don't overflow the truck.
Okay.
So-
And my other comment was, I mean, feeding off of what Councilor McCabe said, that it is very educational. I was wondering if you had any little models of this. Because what I'm thinking the whole time you're speaking was all these great ideas and creations and inventions that young kids, because my children have been in them, inventions, that they do, and they actually start from their school, and then they go to the state, and then they go on regionally and so forth. But I think this would give them really great ideas. So I was just wondering, maybe if somebody within your company or somebody else would feed off of this, if you had a model that and have somebody go around to the schools, so they actually see what is happening in our, because these little minds, some of the inventions I've seen them do is amazing, but I think this would give them, number one, know as young constituents of our city what's going on, but also it really, might even inspire them in some way.
We don't have models, and I could ask the guys at work about that, but we do tours. We do the magnet school, they'll come. We do Project O. We do a few other tours. If any teacher calls me, we set up a tour for them. Anybody who wants to come, we bring them through. And it's a lot more informative than looking at a piece of paper. So, like, if any of you guys want a tour, you just let me know.
I was gonna say, anybody, any of the counselors want a tour, let me know. Let me know your availability, and then we'll set up a tour.
Yeah. It's nice when it's a little warmer out. We're right on the water. It's a beautiful, beautiful area down there. So.
I could just see the questions, like if they are touring, or if somebody's not actually going to the schools, but some things that I don't know what they actually say during the tour, but like inspiring their minds to say, what other ways could we do with excess gas, or what things can we do with this, and how is it used? Just all those kind of things that churn their minds, and they can go back and discuss it or talk about it or even invent something for it. Thank you.
Counselor Sheffield?
Yes, regarding the excess waste gas burner, as far as, preventing the odor problems, and that's been previously discussed, and maybe Ron Gaudet could possibly answer as well as far as the recent investment that Groton Utilities had for the odor reducing point of the, investment we made through GU. Is that something that will help alleviate more so now with this, is that part of the gas burner portion of this, to where reducing the odor?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is, and I should have taken a picture of it, but it's not part of the process, but we have a scrubber that's old, outdated, and the engineering company is right now in the process of evaluating what is the best type of scrubber now. The scrubber is what really scrubs the air, and they suck the air out of the tanks. It goes through the scrubber, whether it's carbon or hypo or whatever. But they're looking at getting the best, and that will eliminate it more than the excess waste gas burner. That gas is odorless, it doesn't have an odor.
Okay.
We burn it just because you don't want to go into what odor you'll get is usually hydrogen sulfide.
Okay.
And the scrubber should take care of that.
Okay.
That,
Good. Yeah.
are you,
Okay.
just making sure you're done.
Sure, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Depot?
while Counselor Piazza was talking, I was thinking we were on the same wavelength. I was thinking maybe this could be part of something that our youth advisory board takes over now, and to include other things in the city that the city does. That again, I didn't know about that when I was a kid, and I wasn't interested in that much science stuff. But there's a lot of kids who would be really interested in like how the process works. And it might be one of those things that like they might not know as a job that you
Yes.
can process wastewater as a career, and or any of the other GU departments maybe, or other things that we do in the city. It might be a kind of cool thing for the youth advisory board to do tours of how a city is run.
Sure.
And like all those different departments might be kind of neat.
We do have something that's pretty neat when we do the tours. We have a microscope, and we have the bigger screen. So we take a sample of the microorganisms, because you can't see them, but when you get them on the you get them on the microscope, you could see all the bugs, and you can see them eating, and it's a good. The kids love that, really.
Counselor Carter?
Good evening. A couple questions. When was, or if any, has there ever been like a major malfunction in the plant down there?
Yes.
And then the second question is, and I'm not a machinist. I never worked on a submarine, none of that stuff, so I don't know. Some of the pumps looked outdated. Like, do we know how old any of this stuff is? Like, how
Yes,
old is
and
this stuff?
that's also what we're in the process also. We have an engineering company that's came in already. They've done the evaluation. They're ready to put out the recommendations of replacing a lot of these pumps. A lot of this equipment's it's ready to be replaced.
Could you put like like one of these pumps? Like, would you know like how old where are they at? Well, just how old in general? Say, I forget what pump I use.
I would say like these primary sludge pumps
I think that's
are
the one I was
easy
looking
back
at.
from the 1980s.
Yeah, so yeah, the primary, that's the initial
Yeah,
one. the
they're
sludge
like
one.
40 years old.
Yeah, okay. And when you serve them or service, like what kind of service? Like they break down, or do we just
Yeah,
have
and
somebody, like
that's
somebody, an
another,
employee,
thing with
like fix them?
equipment, too. Even in our pump stations, and that'll be another presentation someday, but we have pump stations that pump the sewage throughout the city. And it's the same thing with those pumps. A lot of those pumps are old, and it's hard to get even replacement parts or repair parts now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to start doing that too, not just repairing them, replacing them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so a few years ago, this was in the tax base. And what we were doing is we were doing basic operation and maintenance only. We were deferring maintenance. There were things that would get done, some things wouldn't get done, and so one of the things we looked at was pulling it out of the tax base, putting it into an enterprise account, which we were one of the last ones in the state of Connecticut to do. But since we've done that, several things have happened. We're now we now are able to set aside some monies so that we can allow it to build up to do work. We can also go after grants, which we started to do. We can also, one of the things that we're doing now is this study that Joe was talking about. Once that's released, that's going to give us a plan that will develop a 5-year plan, maintenance plan off of, in order to what to replace, what to repair, what to change. And that's going to allow us that opportunity to do that. And, you know, one of the things that most people don't realize is that once this water's processed, it's sent back in to the Thames River. This water almost meets potable water specs, not quite the same, but technically you could drink that water that's going back into the river, because it's going back into the river. And so those are the specs that DPH has put on us and that these guys meet every single day. In addition to that, there is a nitrogen limit that that the state puts on us. And every year, for as long as I remember, we have had nitrogen credits, and we've taken more nitrogen out than is our limit, and so we get money back from the state because of what these guys have done. Going off your comment regarding education, we have had interns that have worked down there. One of the interns that we have is now Dr. Kelsey Reeves. She was an intern, I don't know, years ago. She came here, and there was an issue with an odor problem, and she helped design a filter to help get rid of that as an intern. And then she went on, she got her degree, got her master's, now has a doctor's. She's with Engineers Without Borders, and she has done great things. So we have had people from the city of Groton that have done internships at the PAF. In addition to that, we have a relationship with the Coast Guard Academy, and periodically they will do a capstone project. And there's been many times they've come and they've looked at our the different portions of the plant and our sampling techniques and the water that we put out and all that, and they've done capstone projects for that. So if you have not been to the pollution abatement facility, you really gotta go. It truly is pretty impressive what these guys are able to do. Joe, what size crew do you have?
Excuse me? Oh, I have,
Size crew?
there's 6 guys, six employees.
There's a total of
Plus me
7.
is 7.
There's a total of 7 people that operate that plant, day in and day out, and they're monitoring it 24/7.
And the pump stations and the collection system.
And the collection station and the pump station. So the collection thing, one of the things that we're looking at is, we're gonna be here in the near future, we're gonna be relining, some of the sewer lines down at Jupiter Point and Eastern Point area. And the reason being is, some of the gravity fed lines have cracked, and what happens during big storms is that water will come in, and you'll have water infiltration that'll come in through the cracks, go into the system, and what that does is it reduces capacity and reduces efficiency of the system. So one of the things we're trying to do now, get ahead of, is to identify and line those pumps. Oh, so the 7 people that are working at the pumps, at the PAF, these are all what?
They're licensed operators.
Okay, licensed operators from
The
what
state.
class? This is what's important. The operation of that plant is tied to Joe's license. So he's a plant operator 4.
Yes.
So can you just real quick, and I'll quit talking, but
Yeah. I didn't get to answer your question either about, we did have one, probably 4 or 5 years ago, when the
That-
digester, the one digester was producing too much gas, and the gas didn't have anywhere to go. There was a problem, and it blew up. So, that's been fixed, and we stay right on top of it. That's like one of my biggest, worries.
one of the issues with the digester, let me go right back to that real quick, and I will be quick on it, is that the maintenance had been deferred because of cost. And what we think happened is that the vent line got clogged, pressure built up, and you're talking a lid that is about this big around. And it actually pushed it up and cocked it. And we had to get that replaced. Insurance paid for it. But this is, again, one of the reasons that we wanted to pull it out of the tax base and put it into an enterprise account, so that we're making sure that we're allocating the right amount of funds for the operation and maintenance of this important system. So, any other questions or comments for Joe? Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. Feeding off of how you said we've had interns and so forth, I just wanted to say that a school that my daughter went to, they started them looking at colleges in elementary school. Because statistically, and I'm not a big person on statistics, I'll tell you that, because I took it and I learned a lot to it. But with that said, they found that children will tend to go to college more if they're introduced to it earlier. So that's my whole thoughts about getting the younger children exposed. And my other question or comment is, we're talking about the employees being licensed. What's the educational requirements for that?
Well, what you have to do is you have to have your high school diploma to get in. Then you have to start taking classes. We take them, the DEEP has certain classes that you have to take, and it's through the University of Sacramento, California. They're, you can do them online now. So you get the book. You have to have 9 CEUs, which would be one large book, to take your grade 1. And then your grade 2, I think it's 30 CEUs, so that it's like 3 or 4 books. And to get your 4, you have to have 135 CEUs. And they're coming out with a new, where you have to continue to take classes every year to keep your certification. So you have to take the class, pass the test. And the tests are pretty, they get tougher as you go. If they have the 4 tests, if they have 10 people take it, they might have 1 pass. So they get harder and harder. And there's a lot of them, there's a lot of plants out there now that can't find 4s. It's a big thing. Now the town is still looking for 1. So it's a good license to get. I mean, like, if you're not thinking about going to college, if you're a kid that you like working with your hands, you get in there, get your classes, study, pass your tests, you move up. We have 2 guys that went to tech school, no college. Eric's a 3 now, and he's working for enough CEUs to take his 4.
So it's basically, sorry, it's basically CEUs. It's not
Right.
per se apprenticeship hours that they
No,
need.
it's CEUs.
Just total CEUs.
And
But they're
time.
learning as they're
Right.
working.
You also have to have time. You can't
Right.
take your 4 unless you have the 135 CEUs and you've been in charge. You have to have charge time for 2 years.
Okay.
You can't get your 3 for at least 5 years. So it takes about maybe 10 years to get your 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, Joe, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Yep, and like I say, anytime you guys want to, get a hold of, it's the mayor or whoever, and they'll let me know when you're coming.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
You guys do a great job down there. Thank you. Okay, Sierra is a community workshop update.
Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on some of the upcoming community workshops we have planned. On March 31st, we are hosting a City of Groton tagline workshop. This is, we're gathering a focus group of about 20 individuals to help us redefine the city's new tagline, which is also referred to as a slogan. I have invited counselors from each committee group to represent or be represented on that focus group if you guys are available. That is this Thursday at 6 p.m. And I will send more information on its exact whereabouts and everything as we go forward through the week. I'm sorry.
Councilor McCabe.
We're making a new tagline. Do we have an old one? And we're replacing it, or we just don't have one, and we're?
We just don't have one, so yeah.
So
Like
this-
Groton Utilities has at your service, but the city of Groton doesn't really have anything of its own.
So this is part of our marketing and branding of the city. So the tagline, the colors, the fonts, everything, we've been working on for the last couple of years. So this is a continuation of that.
And a Miranda Creative representative will be present at that workshop to help us go through that process. Any other questions in regard to that particular?
Okay.
On April 14th, we're going to host a virtual Complete Streets workshop. Through the active transportation grant that the city was awarded, we're working with design consultants Street Plans to look at the idea of bringing in the complete street theory, which is more safe, accessible, direct connections to destinations for multiple modes of transportation, so pedestrians, cyclists, bus routes and obviously automobiles. So they will come in and talk to us about complete streets, but then they'll also use the Bridge Street Gateway, so Bridge Street, I-95, and up North Street as an example of working with the community of what a potential complete street could look like in the city of Groton. Right. On
Where are these workshops being held?
this work, the one on April 14th will be virtual. It is registered through the city's Zoom account.
Okay.
On April 25th, myself, Ninegret Partners, and Interface Studio will host an open house following up to a CAL presentation of the Visioning Thames Street work. We'll give an overview of all the work that we've done thus far, as well as share the placemaking implementation plan that is really based and built on community feedback about improvements along Thames Street and Thamesview Park. And that would obviously be in person. The open house will start around 5 o'clock here out in the foyer, and then we'll just kind of roll over into the presentation with you guys. On April 28th, we're revisiting a community resiliency topic. The Coast Guard Academy has been following our community resiliency planning process, and the Shore Avenue resilient strategies that came up as a potential solution for the city to continue to look at. There's a group of civil engineers that's going to take on Shore Ave and actually come up with some innovative solutions for the city to consider. And so they want to come and meet with us on the 28th. That is to be determined on the location, but I believe that will be here at 6 to kind of share some innovative ideas for, they're looking at the Eastern Point Beach, and I kind of refer to it as a concrete beach, but I know it's not it's a retaining wall that's by there, but that entire neighborhood area, that's what their focus is at the moment. And that's all I had for upcoming community.
Questions or comments for Sierra? Okay, that's it. Thank you, Sierra. All right, we're going to move to 793, which is the American Rescue Plan Act. The intent of this is to give you some information, not to get into a big discussion tonight about it, but to give you the information that we have that has come out of the committee that I have with staff. And there were different buckets that you guys identified. And so we have things in the buckets. If you'll notice, the project at the bottom has $3,600,000. We're only getting $2.6 million. So some of these will have to go away. And we're getting some additional information that may, additional information on the final ruling that may lead us to a couple more projects that may come our way. And so what I wanted to do was give you this information, let you look at them, let you see the sheets, think about them, and then after the budget season is over in May, June, we will have a special, at least one special meeting of Committee of the Whole to talk about this and to start finalizing where to start allocating money and start deciding where we're going to spend money. Any questions at a high level? Not looking to get, like I said, not looking to get into individual projects or get into it deep tonight. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Are you interested, like if I have a project on here that I am super interested in seeing happen, do you want us to maybe email you and say,
Yep.
these are half a dozen things that I think are really important?
Yep.
Would that be helpful?
Let me know. Now, we've reached out to the council before and asked for your recommendations. Paul, you will notice one of yours didn't make the cut, and that was and I want to explain why. You had talked about a loan program. We're not set up here to do loan programs, and I don't have another person. If we had an existing loan program, then I would consider that. We are good for grants, but the tracking and all that with the loans. And we talked about that at the meeting, and there was a decision from the team to not include that. But I felt that I owed you an answer, and I want to give it to you publicly since you did publicly ask for that. Anything else at a high level? Counselor Norris?
There was, I want to say back in the fall or summer, I actually don't remember this. It was with Jimmy Butler.
Yep.
Or Mr. Jim Butler.
Yep.
I think we approved money to go. We did not.
Nope, because what happened was, that's what started the whole thing. I brought Ledge Light and COG in with the intent for those two, and then it got misconstrued that I was trying to piecemeal this. I wasn't. But I had two requests right then that I wanted to do. I am going to move the COG up early, and probably the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments up early, and move Ledge Light back up, because they have requested, they have renewed interest in, Jim's put out an all call because they're trying to find, they want to have, what do they call it? Basically a coordinator, but only a handful of municipalities have agreed to the funding. And so he didn't want to go with a full person until he had authorization on the funding. And then the same thing with Steve Mansfield on the Ledge Light funding, because it was going to basically expand those two programs. Those were two that I might consider bringing to you beforehand, because we have discussed them before, but I may just wait and include them when we get to the whole group, but then prioritize them quickly. I mean, at a higher level to get the funding going.
Thank you.
Because some of these are projects, some of these are funding to different services, and, yeah, let me stop there, because if I get started, I'll get going, and I don't want to get into this tonight. Councilor Norris?
I do have a question on, I don't know if it's procedure or what, how would we give, because I saw stuff in here for social services, so that would,
All right, so I wasn't going to address this.
oh, sorry.
Nope, because Ron's giving me the eye. So, when we talk about, so you have social services, and then you have nonprofits. And then one of the areas that the council was interested in was the residents and small businesses. So you got, now, we have March Fondulis, that's one thing, but we also have grants and loans for individuals and for the businesses. The town has a process. They've developed a process, they have a vetting process, they have a sheet. And so I talked to John Burt, and instead of us developing another process and then having to figure out, is somebody going to double dip, what the agreement is right now is that anybody from city or town will go to the town. The town will determine if it's city or if it's town. If it's town, they will fund. If it's city, we will fund. So that's what I was going to get into very quickly at a high level, not into the actual process, but they developed a vetting, they do have a vetting process. That way, we can make sure that people that are qualified within the time frame do get access to the funds.
Thank you.
Okay. Did that answer, did that
Yes,
address?
it did.
Okay. Anything else at a high level? Okay. Then this was meant to be informing, and it has been. So, absolutely. Ron's going to thank me later. He doesn't know it yet. All right. The next thing is ordinance review discussion, the retiree cost of living allowance, the COLA. Ron, I'll turn that over to you. 603, I'm sorry, my apologies.
So there's every year this goes through and it's reviewed by our actuaries, and they come up with a recommendation, or they come up with, I shouldn't say a recommendation, but the cost estimate for doing a COLA increase. This year's COLA increase is for retirees prior to 2019, so it would for anybody retired in 2018 prior. The way that the calculation is done is it takes the average CPI-W change from calendar year 2020 to 2021, and then that increase was 5.3%, and then it takes 25% of that increase as what the recommended COLA is, which would be 1.31% of an increase for the retirees prior to 2019. This has gone through the retirement board. The retirement board approved it and is passing it along and with the recommendation to approve the COLA increase.
Counselor Sheffield.
Was this on the finance committee list? Was that the retirement pension? Is that part of on the finance part, on the pension list?
I don't know what's under that. I don't know what drove that. I mean, this comes up every year and goes to the retirement board and doesn't.
Okay, so that's so this retirement thing is different that I have on my sheet. There was
we'll have to look at yours. I honestly
Okay.
don't know what,
It's been on the back burner for a while. That's why I wasn't sure what.
well, let's take a look at it, and if
Okay.
we can't make sense of it, we'll remove it.
Okay.
But this gets reviewed by the pension board. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting
So
of
moved.
April 4th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Counselor Carter?
So you're saying, I probably should know this, but it gets reviewed every year?
Yeah, as long as there was an increase in the CPI-W average. I think 1 year since I've been here, there was an actual reduction, and so nothing was presented to council. But other than that, it usually comes every year with the recommendation from the retirement board.
Yeah. How come it's every year rather than a set amount of years, like a specific time frame, like to expire? I'm just questioning why? Like why do we do it yearly?
This was set, I'm not sure when this was set up, but it was just the way that the formula was done, that's reviewed every year, and it gets a new group of retirees included in it. So like this year, it has 2,000 employees that retired in 2018. Last year, it was 2017 and prior. It's a small increase.
No, I
and
know
it
it's a
is-
small increase.
and
I'm
it
just
is
actually
built-
surprised it's
Yeah, and it's
so
built into our
small.
actuary evaluation as well.
Well, all right.
Did that address your question? Okay, any other questions or comments on this? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, next is 561, Groton Utilities Financials.
We'll do our normal, we'll go through them quick. I know this, it's exciting.
I was gonna. No, never mind. That's-
Just, we haven't gone through them, so like I said, we'll just kind of flip through them quick, and there's really nothing has changed that you haven't heard me talk about on each month when we've kind of just talked through. So on page 7, for the electric division, the total electric revenue is 32 million versus the budget of 32, so 1.3 favorable. Total operating expenses for the fiscal year are 34.5 versus the budget of 34.5, so essentially 50,000 positive. The main driver there you'll see is the purchase power is up based on cost and the above budget revenue. Net income, line 52 from operations, is at 4.5 versus the budget of 3.3, or 1.2 favorable for the fiscal year. So the electric department is still running favorable as far as compared to budget. Any questions on electric?
Nope, but I want to make a comment real quick. I sent the council an email that came from Tina Daniels. In April, we are increasing the purchase power adjustment by an amount, but it ends up being roughly $17 a month, $19 a month for 700 kilowatts is what they're looking at. And that is because the price of power that we're buying has gone, and that's CMEC, and therefore that we are buying, is going up. Now, we do have, rate stabilization fund, and the rate stabilization fund at CMEC is used to help offset the cost of that. But cost of power purchase. If we did nothing, we would be out of money in less than a year. So what the utility is looking to do is to have this PPA, and this is not something that just the Groton Utilities is doing. Eversource is doing it, MPU is doing it. MPU just had an increase late last year. They're going to do another one here in July. Jewett City's doing one in July. Third taxing district, I think Ron didn't have anything from them, I think, right?
so.
TTD. But the other munis around the United States are raising their rates they're doing an assessment because of the cost of power. And so what this allows us to do is to help maintain that rate stabilization fund so it doesn't run down to zero, and then also absorb the price that we're having for the purchase price that we're getting from CMEC that is getting from ISO. So that's why we're doing that. So I wanted to make sure you guys understood that. We've talked about it at length at the Groton Utility Commission, but and this is why I wanted to send it to you. We sent it to them, but I also sent it to you guys because you may get questions from the residents. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Is it possible to get either at the next cow or via email, just kind of high level, like what the change in that cost is doing?
Sure.
Like maybe prediction end of year, like if we don't do it, what that effect will be on the utility?
We can get a brief summary of what they did for the Utility Commission, right? Either a truncated version, maybe. I don't think we need to bring Mark in. I think the utilities, Aaron, we could find our local staff to give that presentation. So, we can do that. I'm sorry, please continue. You
No, I
have
was just gonna say, even if we just have the cost of what we were paying for power before on average versus what it is now and what we expect it to keep, because it probably might keep increasing. The prediction could be that it's gonna continue increasing, I don't know. But what we can expect the increase to be that's driving
Okay.
our increased costs.
So are you looking, because I might, instead of doing it for a committee of the whole, we might be able to do it under communication report if we keep it short and sweet. But I need to make sure I understand the level of detail that council's looking for. Are you looking for just a short presentation?
Even just to say, last year it cost us $5, this year it's costing us $25, we
Okay.
can't absorb that cost. And by increasing it this amount per kilowatt hour, we're going to be able to close whatever the gap is, or that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
We should be able to put something together along those lines, and just with the forecasted prices
Yeah,
and I believe the number was 3.5 that we've already used out of rate stabilization fund over the past months to try to prolong this.
I think, to
Or
me,
delay it.
something that's effective is to tell people, okay, if we don't do it, this is what is going to happen. Like, we don't, even if it doesn't increase more, the amount it's increased already, the cost of energy, if we can explain to people, we could leave it at the current price, but this is what will happen.
Which it's similar to, I'm guessing, the UC presentation
Yeah.
that was done.
well, and a lot of what's driving this is natural gas prices. In New England, actually, across the United States, natural gas prices. In New England, we also have another issue with supply, because there was another pipeline they were trying to open up from Maine down to here, and it got shut down by ISO. And so, one, you have prices going up. Two, you have the limited amount of gas that we have coming in, and that also drives up price. So, but yeah, we can do that. Councilor Carter?
Yeah, that's a question. But how, with the prices, right? So how, do we know if they're gonna continue on the rise, or it's just because of inflation and what's going on now? Is it gonna go back down to what the norm is? You know, because if we make the additional or the added cost
Yep.
in the prices that we pay to see, or the prices we pay for it, if they change and go back and settle to where they are, then we're still paying here when GU's paying here. Like, so like what, like that, do we, is there a fluctuation, or is it just because of right now, that's because everything's at through the roof, you know?
So, do you remember the numbers? I remember it's like 70-something to 101 is
Yeah,
something they
so,
were,
So we're going off of the forecast from CMAC, what they're projecting the cost to be, and that's what we're basing it off of. This is gonna be reviewed in 6 months again to see where things are at. There could always be a negative PPA adjustment, which we've had in the past on our
Yep.
bills, which
Okay.
then gives back. So the PPA can go both directions, but it is gonna be reviewed in 6 months to see where those forecasts are, but this is based on current forecasts.
And again, as a business, GU would make that change if the levels went, if they went down?
yep,
Correct.
Absolutely.
If you went back historically, 3 or 4 years ago, this was actually adjusted on a monthly basis on your bill. And a decision was made to try to, with the new rate structure, to try to levelize that and just look at it annually, so there isn't that up and down.
Yeah, this is not a price gouge that GU is trying to do on anybody. What they're trying to do, because we have the rate stabilization fund, and that comes from the profits that we get from CMAC. But at the current rate that we're using that rate stabilization fund to subsidize the cost of power, we're gonna be to zero. We're like 15 or 18 million dollars now. We're gonna be to zero in less than a year. And then the total cost is absorbed by the ratepayer. And then that's gonna go through the roof, and nobody wants to see that. So, but yeah, we will, your point is heard and made and heard, and we will get a presentation. Okay, I'm sorry, Ron, please continue with water.
Go to page 13. Line 17, total water revenue is at 7.6 million versus a budget of 7.8 million, or just under 200,000 under budget. Mainly driven for the sales for resale being low budget 115,000, and the industrials customers being 177,000. Line 30, total operating expenses 6.4 million versus a budget of 7.7 million, or 1.2 favorable. A big piece of that, as we've talked about, is the depreciation expense being under budget based on the delay of the water treatment plant project. That is currently, we closed on the loan the end of February, and we're currently working on getting the depreciation put together for that entire project. And so you'll start seeing the depreciation most likely next month. Line 44, net earnings before the DWSRF grant is 1.4 million versus a budget of negative 316,000, or 1.7 favorable. So overall, the bottom line is favorable, but again, it's mainly driven based on that delay in the flow. And if we flip to page 18, the sewer. Line 15, total sewer revenue is 2.7 million versus a budget of 2.9, or 207,000 under. Again, as we've talked about, that's driven by the industrial class and more deduct usage than what was originally budgeted for by one of our large industrial customers. Line 26, total operating expenses, budget 2.1 million, or actual is 2.1 versus budget 2.5, or 400,000 favorable, with the net income line 37 being 465,000 versus a budget of 237,000, or just about $250,000 favorable. And again, that's driven based on the under expenses in the operations and maintenance after the under in the revenue.
Any questions on utilities? Councilor Piazza.
I just have a comment that, since you were saying that maybe some people would speak to us in reference to it, as far as the increase, is there something that you could give us, or just something simple? Because some people don't understand all the logistics into it, and being explained here, I understand it, but something simple, because, I mean, a lot of the complaints more at my workplace and amongst people who are single parents, even though, say, at our workplace, we've had a pretty good increase in pay, but then again, everybody's complaining that everything's going up. So here now we have something in April coming up, you know, and people know that I'm on city council, some people there. So just something basic that would be more understandable through them what the purpose of it is.
Are you talking about for electric, or are you talking about in general?
Well, the first part we were talking about, electric, would be easier, yeah.
Do you,
There is a mailer that's going out. I mean, I'm not sure what the mayor sent, so I don't want to speak on your behalf, but there, I don't know if the mail.
what
Yeah.
Tina sent out, that was gonna
Okay.
be in the mailer. I sent that to them, and that's what's being sent in all the mail. So that is what we are using to explain the cost change. Okay, Deputy Mayor Depot?
I don't remember what that mailer looked like. Is it possible to even maybe on the Facebook page, post that and then post, I don't know if we want to spam Tina with everybody calling her, but repost or remind people of the resources available if that increase in cost is causing it to be above some threshold for them where they need assistance. Maybe post that resource again. I know we've posted it before, but with this increase coming, to repost and say, if this presents a hardship, call this number, or here's some resources, or whatever, so that we can make that available.
So to answer that question now, our customer service organization works with all the customers. So anywhere from, here are some resources you can have, TVCCA, Energy Assistance, Unite CT, those kind of things, to we will work with you to do a payment plan. So that's within your budget, so that you can help levelize your payments. So I know that we're working with customers. We're sensitive to the costs that are going up, and there was a lot of decision that went into putting this out, but it's pay me now. We got to do something now, because if we don't, it will be absolutely ugly. Councilor Carter.
Yeah, I agree with what you said as far as like the mailing thing doesn't essentially reach the people that you know that need to be reached. So I think that's good, the Facebook thing and on the website. But one other things that I just came into mind when you said this, so we're seeing this next month, correct? Right?
Yep.
So next month's also a time where I know that they do shut-offs and stuff for like the winter if they haven't already started doing that. So that's like another major thing to kind of think about, or to possibly think about pushing back a little bit, because we're gonna have some people maybe already in the rear with paying their utilities, and they're expecting a shut-off. And then to expect them to pay a hike, it may be just a lot at one time. So I would maybe look at just pushing it back a little further, you know, maybe allow people to get some income tax return or whatever they need to pay. Just something, it's just a lot, so.
I will tell you that we do not typically shut off power for $100, $200, $300. You're talking typically in the thousands of dollars that people have not paid or attempted to pay their bill. So I heard what you said, I'll pass it on. We will continue to work with the customers, and we'll do what we can. Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. So when you're saying thousands of dollars, is that thousands of dollars that also includes arrearage and arrearage fees? Or is that just thousands of dollars in just utility?
$1,000 in utility
Rates.
bills.
Okay.
That people during COVID, we had the period where, you know, we were doing this, or we were delaying cutoffs and those kind of things, because we recognized people didn't have jobs, and it was tough and everything else. We recognize now that with the economy being where it is and inflation and everything else, it's a challenge. But sometimes you will have people that haven't paid a bill in a year. I mean, I'm talking not even put down $10 on their bill. So that's where some of this runs into. But Tina and her staff with customer service, they're doing everything they can. And they provide, you know, oh gosh, what's her name? Deb Monahan. Deb Monahan with TVCCA is very helpful. We have sent people to Groton Senior Services not Senior Services, Groton Social Services with Marge Von Dulis. I mean, we're doing everything that we can to help people, because if you can defer money from this, if we can give you groceries so that you can pay this, I mean, some people are down to that level. I get it. And we are doing everything we can to help the residents out. Deputy Mayor Dean.
I just want to add to that. I know that some places have notoriously tough customer service to deal with, and that is not the case here. Tina is so nice. So I know that some places you kind of are discouraged and don't want to call, but I always encourage people, if they have an issue, I just give them Tina's number, because Tina is super nice all the time, and she will figure out a way to make it work, and she knows all those resources like the back of her hand. I've helped people with issues with utilities, and she's always super helpful and nice. And I think when you have an issue with unpaid bills, having a nice person on the other end of the phone is really important. And that's one of the reasons people don't fix these issues, is because they're nervous of getting some judgmental person or someone who's not going to be nice to them. And I've personally experienced with our customer service department that is not the case. Customer service is really nice, in particular Tina, who I've dealt with several times. So I would encourage, if anyone here, I would assume that some of us have dealt with customer service before, but if you haven't, you know, feel free to send people to Tina. She will not steer, you know, she won't make you look bad for sending them her way.
No.
She's really good.
And that phone number is 860-446-4000. That'll get you to customer service. And if you feel that you're not getting the service, ask for Tina Daniels. She's the general manager of that operation. Councilor Piazza.
I just want to encourage anybody that's listening or constituents out there. I talk to a lot of people how important it is to watch the meetings, be involved, be a volunteer. I can actually say at one time when I had a medical condition and lost my job, not due to the medical condition, but had to come out of that, but that I was a recipient speaking to Groton Utilities, going to social services, and they were wonderful people, and that was helpful. I mean, and to get the paperwork together, I think that was probably the heaviest thing for me, all the little pieces of paper that you had. But hopefully we are going to show as counselors here that we're willing to help, we're willing to give the referrals, and so forth and so on. And I, as one, have walked that road. So if anybody's listening or is going to watch this video later, I hope you do get involved, but hopefully reach out also. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll move to city budget presentations. So this is just a high-level overview.
Yep, and then this is for the city's general fund. Again, looking at there's nothing that's out of line. There, you can see there's some that are low on percentages just based on timing of the year. Citizens participation is at 7%. That's because that's a one-time a year event, and same with the debt service payments. That's at 1.75. So it's just because there's one interest payment left. It's nothing out of line, and all the departments are in line with budget currently.
And I am planning to give you the budget next Monday at the mayor and council meeting. So you'll have the budget so you can start looking at. I think in the past you have received the FY23 departmental budget presentations, the schedule, okay? So. Yes. Yep, thank you. I was going to say that, but you're right. I asked Megan to put that out today. So any questions or comments on this? Councilor Norris.
I apologize. What is can you give me an example of what would come out of boards and commissions?
Yeah, boards and commissions, that's actually for the retirement board. So that'll
Okay.
cover the valuations and the GASB reports.
Got it. Same thing with building commissions?
That is the planning and Is it the planning and zoning enforcement? I'm trying to think of all the commissions those are the commissions that fall under Joe.
Got it. And then the last one would be, well, there's two more. What is pay adjustment?
When we have unsettled contracts, we
Okay.
put a placeholder, so that way we keep the line flat for pay increase if there's a contract that has not been negotiated.
Okay,
So one of the reasons we do that is because if we put in like a 2.5 or a 3 or whatever it's gonna be, then the union's like, okay,
right.
that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So that's what the pay adjustment's for.
And then the building maintenance, is that just a seasonal thing? Because 80% just, to me, sounds high with 25% of the year to go.
So the building maintenance is this building.
Yep.
So there's some line items that may be high budget-wise. When you go through the budget, you'll see them because of the unknowns.
Okay.
So we try to keep that in there. Last year, we did the sidewalks out front, that came out of
Yep.
this fund. So it could be seasonal, or it could just be that we'd have placeholders there for the unknowns with this building.
Got it.
That wouldn't fall under capital.
Right. And then, talking about capital, is there at some point a decision is made what to do with that contingency? Or is that something that rolls deeper into June?
The contingency piece, there $1 million of that is undesignated capital, so that will end up, if nothing comes up as emergent or that needs, it'll roll into the CNR fund for capital, for future capital projects.
Okay, so it just goes into the reserve, I guess?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, into that capital equipment reserve fund. And then there's 115,000 in the budget that's truly a contingency for any unknowns that come up during the year. We've used that in the past for, I think it was a fire truck repair, or
Got it.
just out of the norm, big expenditures.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments on the budget? Okay. And that's it. Hearing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So
I make a
moved.
motion to adjourn.
And we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming out. Hour and 50 minutes, that's not bad.
My guess was 2 hours. I was like, I think we'll